Who knew there are people who hid things in their barns for decades, or even owned a barn in the first place? But it looks like this car owner did. Anybody who knows anything about cars knows and loves the Porsche 911. But before that, there's an even rarer auction find that everybody wants to get their hands on. In this video, we'll talk about the 550 Spider that could have everyone drooling at an auction. First off, what did they find in the barn? Imagine a Porsche 550 Spider sitting in a barn completely untouched. You'd think it would have gone bust by now, right? Wrong. It looks like it's literally the picture of perfect car health and ready for a drive. It's got an even cooler history to boot, and Rita Rampanelli are only some of the most famous Swiss race car drivers who once owned this beauty. It's basically a classic Porsche race car from 1956 called the 550 Spider, but the difference is the last owner, bless their soul, switched the body from an RS60 and a new engine at some point. And it was a miracle that they did, because that's probably why it's still alive and kicking. Or is rooming the right word to use here? Okay, so why is this car special? Well, the most obvious reason why it's going high under the hammer is that there aren't that many left in the world. Plus, it's a race car that has won a lot of racing records. We get it. Who wouldn't want to get their hands on one? Want to know how many records it's won? Well, it won class at Le Mans, and at the Nürburgring Eifel and Targa Florio races in South Italy. Sports Car Digest called the 40th Targa Florio one of the toughest road races in the world. But this car, it still managed to win. Now imagine if Ricciardo got his hands on this one. Kidding. That's not all though. The 550 Spider was literally Porsche's re-entry into the racing world, so you bet it's designed with the highest quality steel tubes, and it's got the sweetest aluminum body. A flat 4-cylinder engine with 110 brake horsepower was used to finish off the little race car. That may not seem like much, but because the little Porsche was so light, low, and tight, it was more than enough. Moving on, it's got some bad luck. If you go deep into the internet, you'll find a picture of James Dean with a Porsche 550 Spider right before he died. That gives it some, clout. May he rest in peace though. But seriously, after one of the best race car driving careers, this model was the last he drove before his fateful accident. Even though the little race car was good, bad luck cast a shadow over it. Of course, it's not the same car as the one that he got into an accident with. This record-setting Porsche barn find's likely to sell in London later this year for a lot of money. You know what they say, no press is bad press. Up next, a little history lesson. If you look at the history books, you'll see that the Porsche 550 Spider came out in 1953 and was only sold until 1956. This means that only 90 were made up until 1956. The Spider is a very popular collectible because it's such a rare car, but this particular model makes it even more so. The 1956 model is a mid-engine car that comes with a 1.5-liter engine. It sits in front of the rear axle line. This 1498cc flat-4 Porsche Carrera 4-cam engine was known for its 2-shaft-driven overhead cams and dual ignition. It also has dry sump lubrication. The Spider was originally able to make 110 bhp, but this one was upgraded in the 1960s with works factory parts. It also got the new bodywork from the Porsche RS60. This barn find was red with white darts when it came off the factory floor. The first person to own it was Rita Rampanelli, who later sold it to Heinz Schiller. Schiller raced in Switzerland and on tracks like Monza and Avis with the car. Edward Margaraz bought the car later and drove it in the Swiss Hill Climb races. Joe Siffert, who won the Swiss Grand Prix and drove in Formula 1, also owned the car. The car was then put away in a barn in the 1980s. So how much is it even worth? Well, from what we've heard, this classic car is going to sell at auction later this year for anywhere between 1.5 million and 2.1 million. That's a lot. Not bad at all for a race car that's been sleeping in a Swiss barn and was just brought back to life. The auction's all set to take place at the Gooding & Company London auction that's going to happen in September. Also, they're going to host it at the Hampton Court Palace, so you bet it'll be fancy. Better get your bids ready then if you're prepared to spend your entire life savings on this gorgeous baby. And finally, some people might have their doubts still. Okay, as cool as this rare barn find sounds, it's pretty hard to buy it at a first glance. Like, how's it still functioning, even if it did get an engine change? What about the forces of nature? Did they not put a single dent in it at all? Well, to clear all these doubts, Good & Co. is going to have Andy Pearl look into its history. He's an English Porsche expert, so we trust that he knows what he's doing. Pearl basically said that even with the new RS60 style body, it's impossible not to identify that this car is an authentic Porsche 550 Spider chassis 079. Wow, they really know how to name their cars. He went on to say that, okay, it might need a little work for any new owner, but after the restoration, the car would be totally worth it. They could choose to just enjoy it as it is now, or make some more changes to it. So it looks like how it did back then. Well, we don't know who'd be willing to spend some more money on restoration after buying a car this expensive, but we're sure some car enthusiasts might be down to do it. And here's some other related news you might have missed out on. First off, BMW's got a Pikachu mini car coming out? At Gamescom's opening night live, there were a few strange surprises, and a new concept car made by BMW and Pokemon together. It's called the Mini Aceman Concept, and it's a brand new electric-only mini crossover with a clear Pokemon theme. If you turn on Pokemon mode, Pikachu will appear on the huge OLED screen every time you get into the car. It's also got an LED projector outside so you can watch your favorite Pokemon while sitting on the roof rack of your car. With some flashy LEDs on the front panel and a bunch of Pokemon-themed visual effects on the dashboard, you can make an electric crossover that screams Pokemon so loudly that it'll make up for the lack of noise from an internal combustion engine. The crossover between Mini and Pokemon seems to be the start of a new marketing campaign for young gamers. Pokemon is by far the most popular video game franchise in the world, so it makes sense for Mini to start with Pikachu and his friends. You don't have to like Pokemon to enjoy the Mini Aceman though. Mini Mini's got a website with a game where you drive an Aceman around on different tracks. Second, Jeff Gordon's all set to race at Porsche's Indianapolis event. You'll be happy to hear that Jeff Gordon's gonna race again. If you've been keeping up with his career, then you probably already know that he's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and that he retired from the NASCAR Cup Series after the 2016 season, but not before he managed to bag 4 titles and 93 wins. He's all set to race in the IMSA Porsche Carrera Cup North America race weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway from September 2nd to the 4th. And to add to the show, he'll work with Ray Evernham, who's a Hall of Fame crew chief. It'll be the first time since 1999 that they get to work together. In the 1990s, they helped Hendrick Motorsports win 47 races and 3 Cup championships. He'll drive a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup race car on the 2.439-mile, 14-turn road course in Indianapolis for the Porsche Carrera Cup. This race weekend's gonna have more than 30 cars, so Gordon's in for some competition. And finally, let's talk about the new Mercedes-AMG GT3. This year is Mercedes' 55th AMG's anniversary, and the company's chosen a very unique way to celebrate it with us. They showed off the new Mercedes-AMG GT3 Edition 55 race car. They'll only be making 5 units of the model. The machine's got several hardware upgrades over the standard GT3, and some of them make it the toughest race car with a 3-pointed star logo, but there's a very simple reason for that. One of the most important things about the new Mercedes-AMG is that it isn't FIA homologated. This means that there are no limits on the aerodynamics, engine, exhaust, or weight. So the 6.3-liter V8 engine under the hood's been tweaked to make 650 horsepower, which is about 100 horsepower more than the FIA version. Not only that, but the performance exhaust system no longer has to come with a silencer, so it sounds even better. That's a wrap for this video. Would you be down to pay that much for a retro Porsche? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.